Pork Chop, and welcome to Haydn Behind the Music Stand. I'm your host, Patty Ryan, and with me is David Portillo, who is a tenor vocalist who has sung at the Met Opera, Lyric Opera of Chicago, Vienna Staatsopera, Bayerische Opera, and soloist with the Los Angeles Philharmonic, among other places. And we'll be talking about RuPaul's Drag Race. Welcome, David. Thanks for being here. I'm so excited.
Ooh, I love that you say pork chop.
Well, just in honor of RuPaul's Drag Race, I had to say.
It's so great. Have you watched this whole season?
Okay, so yes and no. I watched the pit stop with Trixie Mattel, and that's how I found out who won and who got eliminated.
No, right, yeah. Every Saturday, it's like a little Christmas present. I wake up and I'm like, when is it going to download? And
yeah, totally.
But pit stop is pretty inclusive, which is good.
Yes, although I do feel like you don't really get to know the queens on a personal level through that. You get it through the eyes of the other past queens that I also love. But that's where I feel like, oh, I'm missing on that a little bit, but
it'll be on some streaming service
at some point. Yeah, but I'm so excited that Simone won. I was like rooting for her the entire time.
I totally agree from the very beginning. She's definitely in the top 3, I would say even 2. It's kind of funny because it was like a little bit anticlimactic, but at the same time, I was like, oh, this is what I wanted from the beginning. So why is it anticlimactic? That's who I was rooting for. She's so good.
No, and I think some of her looks are so on point for what is happening to our culture and community at the moment. Like just everything representing African American culture, and it was wonderful. Just artistry at the highest level.
Very much so. And I like her story as well. And she's like super genuine, authentic, and knew how to be fun and not just for TV. You know what I mean? It was good.
Right, totally. So we have kind of an interesting-ish story of how we met. For me, I was trying to expand my reach of people to bring onto the podcast. And I asked my neighborhood friends, Gabrielle Glass and Tommy Glass, of anyone that they may know, especially in the vocal scene, because I, as a string player, have always been put into the camp of orchestral musicians and even then string specific. And so Tommy said, oh, maybe David Portillo might be interested. And I was like, okay. And then sure enough, you were. And ever since then, we've all been just excited about you being here. And I feel like it's just the capstone event for the podcast to have you here today.
Oh, super pumped. Yeah, I definitely have like a vocalist bubble as well that I found that I haven't had as many like orchestra playing friends for some reason. And I don't know why we keep to our bubbles so much.
It must be how operas are put together in the rehearsal process. So you just finished recording Benjamin Britten's Albert Herring with the Minnesota Opera, which I've been hanging out with Tommy, and I've seen how much you guys have rehearsed way before even the orchestra shows up. So there's kind of a different trajectory of bonding between the vocalist and then also separate with the musician. So there's something about that where we don't necessarily always commingle.
Right. And really, I think a lot of starting out being a singer is so choral, and basically like you're right next to all your singer friends, and then you go from being a choral musician into a soloist where you have this one instrument thing that you need to talk about a lot. And that's kind of your crew. And then when you go to an ensemble, you're going into your choir room and you're all kind of doing the same thing. It is a little bit of a bubble, but it's kind of great because like we were talking about before, Minnesota artists are all commingling a little more. And I think COVID time, this is like the time to do it. You know, we're finding chamber things, we're finding ways to like make sure we're working together more. I think it's gonna be even more exciting when we get quote unquote out of COVID and we're actually like commingling a little more.
Right. I totally agree. Yeah. So can you tell me about, this is also one of the best pet names I've ever heard, Ruth Dolly Bader Parton Ginsburg.
Yes.
So Ruthie for short.
We got a little puppy right as COVID, like literally the week after COVID happened.
Wow.
We got our little dog. And for a week, we were like, we don't have a name. And we just called her Puppy for a while. It was when the Final Four didn't happen last year. And so we were like, well, I'm going to make like a Final Four of our favorite options for names. So we had like a sweet 16 names that we put out there.
Okay.
And one of them was Ruthie because we love Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So because she's an opera file, she, of course, is like the best Supreme Court justice ever.
Yes.
And she fought for the rights of everybody. And we love her. She's fierce. And then we also had Dolly. That was another option because of Dolly Parton. And so via Instagram tournament style deliberating, we got down to the final 2 names were Ruthie and Dolly. And I'll tell you what, that voting poll, it was 250 deep. was like 3 votes separate.
Whoa!
It was real close. But Ruthie won. So it is Ruthie Doll Cavapoo. But her full name is Ruth Dolly Bader Parton Ginsburg Portillo.
Wow, what a story. Ruth Dolly is also a great just name on its own, too.
Yeah, Ruth Dolly.
So she's I looked this up how to pronounce it. Cavapoo?
Cavapoo. So Cavalier King Charles, which is like the droopy-eared scaredy cat dogs, with a poodle, which is another scaredy cat dog. So she she is definitely a cute little 8-pound just ball of fur, and she's cute and lit up our lives for the last year and has made it a great year.
I mean, pets are always just little beacons of light in our lives, but especially during COVID. I mean, for me, I'm inseparable with my cat now, but
yeah, definitely a necessary sort of outlet, but also like something that selfishly makes me like really happy, but then also something that depends on me to live and eat.
Right. Okay. Are you ready for the Spitfire questions?
I'm so excited.
Okay. Mozart or Beethoven?
Mozart.
Of course, yeah. Shostakovich or Prokofiev?
Because I'm a singer, Stravinsky.
Oh, what?
I don't really sing either of those. I would say Prokofiev to listen to.
But you sing Stravinsky. I'm like, what am I blanking on?
The Rake's Progress.
Oh, yeah, okay. That's what I'm blanking on.
Opera.
Well, that's fine. We can have a third party candidate. That's okay.
Okay.
Netflix or video games?
Netflix.
Basil or cilantro?
Cilantro.
Yes! Yay,
Yes.
Team Cilantro. Harry Potter, Star Wars, or Lord of the Rings?
Star Wars.
Symphony or chamber music?
We're going to
rewrite this question.
Right. I'm going to say symphony because I like opera.
Right. And also you can solo with the symphony.
Yeah, true.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee. 1,000,000,000%. I don't mind tea, but
yeah, but coffee. Favorite practice room?
So at the Lyric Opera of Chicago, I was at the Ryan Opera Center there, and they have a 3rd floor of rehearsal room. And then around there's 3 practice rooms that face out onto the Chicago River. And Wacker Drive is the other side of the building, but this one faces right onto the river because the Opera House is built like a little throne that looks over the east edge of the river. It's so beautiful. And you can see like in the summer, the taxis go by and sometimes the bridges come up, and you just basically can sit there and people watch from 3 floors above, and then you like turn around and you have a grand piano and you can make music. And yeah,
wow, that sounds beautiful.
It's always really fun.
Favorite professor shout out?
Okay, so my applied voice teachers pretty much from undergrad is Linda Petchke. I love her so much. She's still one of my favorite people and mentor. And then my graduate work was Cody Garner from University of North Texas. And then I didn't go to this university, but Stephen King is, one of the best teachers out there. So I would say he's on my shout out list.
I just wanted to point out that even though Dr. King is a professor at Rice University, I've been told that he's somewhat of a vocalist guru, that you just go and have a lesson or coaching before a main part, and then
you come up and you're like floating for a few days, and then you're like, wait, I can sing anything. And then after a few days you're like, oh my god, Dr. King, give me the guru-ness again.
Yeah.
That's exactly what
he's a treasure trove again of vocalists or something in the Houston area, so it's special to work with him.
Definitely. And that's why he works really hard, because he does the LA program and every summer he goes to Aspen. But I think because he was still teaching undergrads who are 19, 20-year-olds to people who are out there singing forever and 50-year-olds, you have to know a lot about the voice.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's totally. Most inspired musical hero of any genre?
Right now, I'm really into Jacob Collier, the jazz musician, who was just up for Album of the Year. And I heard him live in Madrid 2 years ago, and it was spectacular. I went there by myself, and I was just in awe of what was going on. He played 9 million instruments, and he had us all singing all together. And it was great. It was kind of that was a magical night. So I've been listening to a lot of him, but then also Dolly Parton. Yeah. I would say Mozart is also on my list. Yeah. That might be controversial, but some of the most perfect music ever written. And yeah.
I'm surprised that you'd think that he's controversial, but I suppose
I think some singers think it's boring.
What?
I know.
How are you a singer and think that?
Well, no, I do think that sometimes these operas are long and arduous and old. The stories are definitely dated and there's problems with them now. But I do think that the music is perfect for the style, but it was also like moving all of music forward, especially the voice, as far as like how we sing now. And yeah, I think it's some of the most magical music written for the theater of the time.
Yeah.
And we're still kind of chasing that connection a little bit when you see new operas too, you know?
Yeah, totally. No, well, I'm on your side. So
Okay, good.
most transformative performance experience?
This is okay. So
Probably a tough one for you, isn't it?
yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of them have to do with like early choral experiences, because those were just like so ingrained in my head about like, oh my gosh, I love making music with all these people around. And so growing up in Texas, you do the TMEA music all state things, you know?
Yeah.
So I made it all 4 years because I was a nerd. And every year I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best experience ever. Singing as a 14-year-old, singing Stravinsky Psalms, for example.
Oh, sure.
That's a big deal for a 14-year-old to even have that opportunity. But then also like getting that wave of music with 250 high schoolers all with you, like that's just kind of magical, and it made it very special. Things that I've watched and experienced, I remember a Verdi Requiem with the Dallas Symphony, and it was Christine Brewer and Stephanie Blythe and Frank Lapardo. And,
oh my God.
And that was one of the most incredible things I've ever listened to. That one stuck with me for a while. And then something that I've been in as a soloist, I was doing Messiahs with the Phoenix Symphony, and it was the evening that Sandy Hook happened that morning.
No.
And, you know, the news all happened. And I remember like going out there, and I was thinking about that because they had done a moment of silence before we started. And the first things I sing are comfort ye, my people. And I remember starting just the word comfort ye, and I was like, oh, and I like could not handle it.
Yeah.
Never experienced that before. And then all of a sudden I was like, get this back together. And like, I do literally think for the next 5 minutes, I don't remember what happened.
Yeah.
It was one of those emotional, like I was writing this musical thing, and I was like, there's times when things affect you that are not about you. And then you have to like make music through it and because of it, sort of thing. I don't know. It was great. It was such a sad moment, but at the same time, I was like, things have to be better because of things that we're doing right now, you know?
My God. I mean, that was such an emotional story. And I'm just like feeling all the feelings right now. Sorry.
Right.
I just feel like that is exactly our job, in air quotes, but also the magic of what music is. That is such a moment to remember. And it's also like, you're not supposed to be bulletproof and be able to sing through something like that flawlessly or whatever. I mean, you probably were, but just that that's a human moment that we're all feeling and sharing. And it's such an atrocity. Anyway, that was such a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing that.
Thanks for letting me share it. It's kind of funny because I haven't told that story in a long time. And then I thought about, you know, in these questions, I was like, that definitely I will always remember.
Yeah. You probably touched so many people that night, more so than ever, you know?
And it wasn't even our doing, you know, it was just a matter of the time and the place when we all needed to be together to listen to beautiful Handel's music, you know?
Right. Okay. Let's turn to the next question. Next piece you'd like to learn?
Well, I am working on currently John Corigliano's new opera for this summer in Santa Fe. It's called The Lord of Cries, and it is the Dracula story mixed also with Euripides' Greek play, The Bacchae. And so it's like a mixture. I would like to learn it because I have to, but I also like am really excited to sing it because it's gonna be a very cool soundscape of music. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking down at it because it's right here next to me.
Oh, sure. I mean, but Corigliano's music also is, as you say, soundscape. It's like something very different than, and I get attracted to it personally. So I'm excited.
I'm very, very pumped. Yeah. I have a lot. So I'm playing Jonathan Harker, who in the Dracula story is like the guy who goes mad, who's in the Bram Stoker. He's the guy who writes the diary basically and goes to Dracula's house. So I have to almost be doing these wolf cries and doing a lot of like snorting and giggling and things. And like, I'm still working on like what that means. How that sounds vocalism wise, but it's going to be such a blast.
That sounds fun though.
No, it's going to be very fun. Yeah.
Like that's your job. That's cool.
I know, right? Let's work on my wolf call.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, you have finished the Spitfire question round. Thank you.
Yay, thank you.
Congrats.
It wasn't as Spitfire-y as I thought, but it's okay.
No, it's fine. It usually never is. So David, can you tell me, how did you become a vocalist? When did you start? How do you even start becoming one? And when did you know, hey, this is something I'm going to do professionally? And then take us to where you are today.
Yeah, I definitely grew up in a very choral heavy young singer kind of household. So my mom taught music at the Hispanic Baptist Theological Seminary in San Antonio, Texas. So I grew up the son of a missionary and a pastor. My dad was a pastor.
Okay.
So I was always in church choir. I was always singing church music. And then I grew up singing solos in church, pretty often. And that was like my first stage stuff, which is actually like really great opportunity to come into your own voice and to learn how to be a presenter, how to not get nervous, how to practice and prepare. I just loved choir. I was such a choir geek. I was in all-state choir all the time. And then when it was time to go to college, pretty much when you're a good singer, you either go for a music education degree or you do a performance degree, and wanted to study with a teacher in San Antonio. So I went to University of Texas at San Antonio. Go Roadrunners.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that.
That's their mascot. They beep beep, exactly. So I went there for a music education degree and I did 4 years. And then after 4 years, I did a semester of student teaching. So I did 6 weeks of K through 5 and then 6 weeks of 6 through 12. And I was like, this is not for me. I liked it. I think I was pretty good at it, but I definitely was like wanting to sing solos. I'd done good opera roles at school before, and I had done well at NATS, which is a National Association of Teachers of Singing competitions, which every semester you kind of have a level of that to do, which kind of shows you who all else in other universities is at your level.
Okay, so it's kind of a ranking-ish thing, like in athletics or something. Okay.
Yeah. Some people turn up their noses to it as far as university professors are concerned, but I do think it's a nice way for schools that maybe don't have like big giant opera programs to go and see like, oh, this other singer who is my age sings this repertoire and this is how they sing, and and you get to sing for more people too, so it's like a big audition as well.
I see.
I did that a lot during undergrad, and then I went to grad school at University of North Texas up in Denton. I had a really good time there, and I sang Albert Herring there actually.
Wow.
Yeah. And then from there, pretty much the next step, and I'm sure Tommy has told you a lot about this, is that you go to young artist programs. And that's kind of the training for the next step of becoming a freelance artist. And when you're supposed to like step out there into the world, and you're supposed to get roles under your belt, you're supposed to learn more languages, learn all the repertoire. So I did a lot of those young artist programs. I did the Merrill Opera, which is the San Francisco Opera's summer program. I did that for 2 years.
Tommy does that too, right?
He did that, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then I auditioned for Houston Grand Opera and I didn't make it. And I was like, I'm never going to sing again.
I know, right?
I went to Florida Grand Opera for a year, and I went to the Lyric Opera of Chicago, the Ryan Opera Center, for 3 years, actually. That was a really great experience. I worked really hard because of like my first year, I had so many covers and a lot of music to learn. It was overwhelming, a little bit too overwhelming for a 27-year-old who was like not necessarily singing some of the rep that I was supposed to be doing. So there were stretches at that time of my career that I would think I was overstepped my bounds sometimes just with
what was possible and reasonable. Yeah, I understand. I think we all do that though around that age though, is to stretch yourself thin.
Yeah. And I was doing it in front of too many people. That's the thing. Like sometimes you can do that in the practice room and be like, yeah, okay, like I can sing this aria in a year or whatever. But I was covering Alfredo and La Traviata at the Lyric Opera of Chicago, and like Renee Fleming was on stage, and they were like, oh, Matthew Polenzani is not going to sing the offstage stuff. Can you sing it for him? And I was like, what? Like,
yeah.
I did it, and I did the cover run, and I was covering with people like Susanna Phillips and Quinn Kelsey, who are awesome singers. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like, I don't know. It was overwhelming. So I definitely left a little more humbled, a little less like, oh, I can definitely do this. But then I went to Wolf Trap Opera right after my second year and sang Così fan tutte. And I learned a lot about myself and my singing. And I was like, yeah, I do want to do this actually. And so then that was when I was turning 31. And then I came out right after that. And that's a part of my origin story as well, because that's a big part of kind of my life changing, because it was at that time that I kind of really went freelance and I started coming out of young artist feeling and doing more freelance. I've been really lucky because I've not really had to have like a day job, which is great, but it's also, there's been times when I've had like a month off here and 2 weeks off here, but I've been really consistently working, which is great. And it's been a nice even mix of America and Europe. And during COVID, I was singing the Steuermann in Wagner's Flying Dutchman at the Met when everything happened. So we had a show on Tuesday. They were doing the scratch tape for the HD broadcast, which was going to be performed on Saturday.
Right.
But it was the Thursday of that week, March the 10th, I think it was, when Broadway and the Met all shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, we were only like 2 shows in. So then I came home and I was like, oh, this will be like 3 weeks, right?
Right. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then everything just kind of stopped. So luckily, I've kept busy with our house. We did like a basement remodel. We got a roofie. There's been a few really great things. Lake Areas Music Festival. I did a concert for them last summer, and it was really safe and distanced and masked and all the good stuff. I did a recital in Chicago with some friends from Valhalla Media, which was really fun. And my pianist friend Yasuo Oda, who's Chicago-based. She's amazing. And Loft recital here in town, which is awesome. Had a chance to do something with them. And then now this incredible Albert Herring that has just been like more and more new things came that were like, oh, it's going to be filmed only. And oh, the camera's going to be on the stage with you. And oh, we're going to have filming. We're going to do like act 1 for half a day and then act 2 for half a day and all of these new sort of changes. And I'm like, well, yeah, this is all something that we can do and that is attainable. And as long as everybody's staying safe and being respectful, and this is going to be really good. And I really am excited about it. I'm super pumped.
Yeah. So this is your first opera that you've sung since the pandemic. Am I right?
Yeah.
How was that feeling returning back to, I mean, of course, it's still not in front of an audience, which you need that reception, you know, you love the applause and things, but how was that coming back to it?
Yeah, definitely. Like we were talking about, we kind of remain in our pods of singers. I think every show you kind of get that tight camaraderie with people because you are rehearsing and you are in the same room with the same people a lot. This is also such an ensemble show because most everybody is around through most of the opera. It was kind of the perfect opera to get back that like sensation of collaboration, camaraderie, and creating with other people and doing it still in a safe way. So the rules are I think these are AGMA rules, which is the Singers Union, you know? You can only sing 12 feet away from somebody in front of you, and you have to be 4 feet away from people on either side of you.
Okay.
4 feet behind you. You have to be 25 feet away from the orchestra before you can turn toward them. Okay. So you have to be turned away. So there was really cool, like very inventive staging and figuring out how to place everyone, especially when it was like 10 people on stage all at once singing.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
But it was actually really, really inventive. The first day of rehearsal was a little bit of an emotional release. There was definitely like that, oh my goodness, we're doing this. I'm still a little scared because, you know, COVID is still a thing and everybody was almost first vaxxed. But then by the time we were all done, we had all been double vaxxed. Kind of another like rite of passage for us to all know that about each other and like brought us way closer because we had so much about that to talk about and that extra sense of care for each other. And that is really like very special. You know, I don't know any other jobs where that's a thing.
Yeah. Or also it's just a moment in time that's never going to be the same again. That transition of a look at the post-pandemic life.
I think going forward, everybody's trying to keep that line of safety and respect for each other. And what's kind of cool is that we're now like moving in that way that I think all operas are going to be a little more about that.
Yeah, I remember seeing a tweet from Tommy saying how the arts are coming back. And just, I know it seems so silly, but just that simple statement really resonated with me in that like, oh my gosh, he's right. Opera's coming back. Symphonies are going to come back. Things are happening again. Like the arts are really coming back. And I'm just so excited to follow you and to follow all that you're going to do post-pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky that this worked out so perfectly. And I mean, this opera has been such a joy because it's silly. The actual like story is silly, but the character is very much like somebody that's kind of like me. It's, you know, it's a comedy about this community that wants to crown a May queen, but they don't find a girl who's virtuous enough to crown. So then they decide they want to crown the kid who works at the grocer May king. Turns out that he has like had no real life experiences for himself. And it's by nature of his relationship with his mom and by nature of the outsiderness feeling, you know, his otherness, like we could say now. There's a lot about that that's actually like really personal to me too. Mm-hmm. And, you know, singing it in grad school was very different than it is singing now. It means a lot now to sing a story about feeling that otherness and then feeling like, oh, what makes me virtuous is the fact that I want to be good to other people. It's not about being good for myself or being the symbol of virtue or being a symbol for anybody else. It's being good to people. That's in a, you know, funny comedy way. I hope that comes across with this.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and I think that, as you say, it's a combination of a lot of things that I believe all of us have been stewing over during the pandemic is what does it mean to be a human in society and what does it mean to be good or virtuous? And I mean, it's kind of a satire opera, but it's one that asks and answers maybe a lot of really important questions through music.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Benjamin Britten.
Thank you, Benjamin Britten. Yeah. I've had such a blast. That whole feeling of like that emotional release too, that happens at the end also. Like when you wrap a show, it's usually like, oh, that's sad. And then you move on to the next gig. This one was like, I like started mourning it about a week ago because I was like, you've been spending 6 weeks already with people. And then you have a whole 7th week of like being intentional about these recordings. And so, yeah, yesterday we had a nice little park get together and it was so great.
Anyway, David, are you ready to take a break? Is this a good time?
I love a break.
Okay. Okay, we'll be right back. Welcome back from the break. So I have been dying to have someone come on the podcast to talk about RuPaul's Drag Race because yes, you are here for me. Yes, because for me, that show came into my life at probably one of my lowest points in my life. And the show really got me out of that dark place. Watching the vulnerability and the art that came out of each queen's backstory and vulnerability was just so inspiring. That's just my personal introduction to the show. What was yours?
I love that you said that, especially because I do think that it does put together the very, very personal aspects of your identity with the very professional and outward manifestation of performance. Those two things, putting those together and then seeing so many varieties of amazing art, talent, fashion, just everything in the form of a reality TV game show is kind of weird, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm here for it. Some people think that they jumped the ship a few years ago. I think that it's been doing even better because we're seeing like everything just heightened as far as the quality and the variety, the diversity. It's incredible. I love it. Yeah,
I agree. And for me, I started watching, I think it was season 4 with Sharon Needles.
Perfect.
And,
yes.
And of course, I've rewatched the show many times. So on Amazon Prime, if anyone has that, or Prime Video, I think up to season 5 is free. 1 through 5 is totally on there. And that's one of my complaints about the show is that it's just not on one general.
Right. Yeah.
In America, I think in Europe, it's actually on Netflix or something like that. But there are other little platforms. I think CBS is one that you can also watch a few of those. I think Hulu also has some. So it's scattered throughout a lot of distribution sites at the moment. But yeah, watching the older seasons and their styles, especially season 1 filter, right? Oh my God. To now, like to the current season, just everything. The aesthetic is so elevated.
Elevated for sure. I did the exact same thing. I started at 4 because I was told. It's so funny because I think that when you talk to people who love the show so much, they will do the same thing and they'll say, okay, start here, get to know these queens, make sure you're watching through at least 3 episodes because it is a lot to handle. But I think still in those 4, 5, 6 seasons, those are some of the most creative and cool stories, but also they were moving drag drag real fast. So what I did, I was at Glyndebourne Opera in 2016. The summer before was already season like 9 or 10, I guess. So I was told, like, you have to watch the show. You're going to love it. And then I went to Glyndebourne. UK has them all for free. And I was like, well, I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
I probably watched 5 seasons in, I would say, 3 weeks. Like, I pushed through very hard and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need all of it. And so then you end up watching the early seasons, and then you realize just the trajectory of how Ru wanted to kind of craft whatever. And a lot of things changed that weren't really in her control. Yeah. But I think all the decisions that were made were really good. I still love the show now, but I do kind of want also them to follow drag queens in like their real working, quote unquote, real working experiences. And I would love to see like a documentary style sort of thing. Did you see We're Here?
Yes, I have seen some of those. So that's with Shangela, right?
Yeah, it was Bob, Shangela,
Eureka.
And they go to small towns. Yes. And so good. I would love for them to do that with different queens, but doing it in their own city, in their own communities, and then like how they are changing their own communities or how they're affecting their community. Well, that would be
also simultaneously destigmatizing any idea in the past of what a drag queen is. There's just things about what people's conceptions of drag queens are that I think the show and also We're Here is really trying to destigmatize. And that's what is so amazing in watching like an episode of We're Here, because you see the change in the people that they approach.
And it's also amazing how it's now kind of geared for a younger audience, but I think that that's actually fine and really making it what I would call like family friendly. Yeah. And I think that that is a very important part of changing the stigmatizing of the LGBTQ community. It's not about sexual preference. It's not, or whatever word you want to say. It's basically about your identity and about respecting other people's identity.
And that there can be multiple identities. You're not pigeonholed into one aspect of person.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about Gottmik on this past season, because she was absolutely the one that was bending that in her own identity, but also in her identity as a queen as well, as a drag queen.
Right. I loved Gottmik. So Simone and Gottmik are definitely the two that I was rooting for. I mean, I loved Utica also because I'm from Minnesota, and then she had a really bad couple episodes.
Yeah.
But I still think she's like got some really great pictures and has some looks that are incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to do a couple quick fire drag race questions for you.
But I have some for you. Okay, that's fine. Okay, I'll go first.
So if you had one favorite of all time.
It's so tough because it's like you can't just choose one. But I think if I must, it's Katya.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah.
I love Katya. I love her laugh. I love some of the creative things that she comes up with just in her speaking. It's down my alley of creativity. And I just resonate with a lot of things that she is. And I understand like she has addiction issues. And I know that she also has had to leave drag for a bit to try to recover from that. So I really wish her the best. And I just can't imagine what it must be like to be a queen of that caliber and presence and having to deal with a lot of pressure of coming out with creative content all the time. So I'm sending out love to Katya right now.
Yes, I agree. I think that season had so many good people, and she was very, very clear about her hard time with dealing with depression and or just pressure. She put a lot of pressure on herself, and that's such a performer thing. And like, we can all definitely like understand what that feeling is like. And I think she did it with such humor and grace in the show. When you hear more about like how she would cope with it, but then like needed to change other things to cope. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't coping with it the right way. And then, but we were all very aware of all of this. Drag queens are performative, but then they're also very personal, and those things have to be like always together. Okay. So I think Latrice Royale is one of my favorites.
Oh my God. I love her too. Sorry. It's like, how could you choose?
Yeah. And
large and in charge, chunky yet funky.
I saw her live in Houston at S4 2016. It was a very, very fun concert.
Oh my God. Was she as large and in charge and chunky yet funky?
Yeah, of course. I mean, she came out 45 minutes late, and there was kind of a small crowd because it was more like, meet and greet sort of style. And the tickets were a little bit more exclusive, expensive. And I was like, I'm an adult. I can buy some tickets.
Yeah.
And, so we had a really good time, and it was a small catwalk, and she like talked to to everybody in the crowd. It was really nice. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I think it was that her story also, just, having gone to prison and then having kind of come out of sort of a certain upbringing and becoming this like beautiful presence and this glow that so many other people just are attracted to. That's another very, very personal thing that hits immediately. I think that's something that performers, sometimes we have this very like finite box that we have to do, like say for instance a Mozart opera, but we have so much of ourselves that we put into it. And the performers that we love to watch and hear and play are like the ones who have themselves wrapped up perfectly with Mozart or with Beethoven or with Britten or whatever it is we're listening to. And I think for this time, we're watching these performers be completely authentic in things that they're creating in this box of RuPaul's Drag Race TV show. But there's definitely a format about. But then like they all say, you should definitely like go see your local queens and support your local performers. Yeah.
Totally. I wanted to say on one of the episodes, I can't remember if it was during her season or if it was on All Stars, where Latrice Royale said, in mentioning of her going to prison, that everyone makes mistakes. It's how you get out of that mistake that tells who you are as a person. And that to me was like, I love you so much. That's exactly it. Like, yes, you make mistakes in life. It's not about the mistake. It's about the aftermath, how you react to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And she turned it all upside down.
Yeah, I would never have thought someone coming out of prison would become a fierce, famous drag queen. Just incredible. One thing I wanted to go back, echoing what you're just saying about supporting your local drag shows too. Whatever you see on the TV is true, but it's not totally what the experience is like at an actual drag show. Right. And I just quickly want to say there is drag still happening in the Twin Cities. Just for any Twin Cities listeners, Flip Phone is the resource to go and see all their shows. And they have weekend brunches. I went during my birthday weekend. It was fantastic. Yeah. That's a resource for anyone who is interested in supporting local drag queens. And I think I even saw Mercedes.
Mercedes Iman Diamond.
Yeah. She wasn't performing, but she was there out of drag. Yeah. It was, I was like, oh my God.
Baby Sahara Bonet was on a plane with us with David, and we like kiki with her right afterward at the baggage claim.
Oh my God.
Fun of like everything.
That's awesome.
It was so fun. Yeah, she was very nice. She was telling us about her concerts. And have you ever heard of the local queen Barb?
No, I don't think so.
Here's a commercial for Barb. She's awesome. She's very funny. She's like what I would call simple drag. Like she's not a glamour queen at all, but she'd kill me if she heard me say that. But she's very, very funny and knows how to work a room and knows how to even just have like 1-on-4 conversation and like turn everything really, really into a fun experience. And we had Barb do our neighbor's baby shower a couple of years ago.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It was hilarious. It was at the St. Louis Park Recreation Center with like the ice skating rings.
Yeah.
Barb like walked up full drag, walked through like the ice skating rinks to a baby shower. That was being held like upstairs in a meeting room. It was so great. It was very funny. She did so good.
Oh my God. If she's on a show, I'm going. Yeah.
Zoom parties and stuff. We had her for my husband's birthday party last year too.
Oh my God. Amazing. So this brings me back to another prepared question I had for you. Who's your favorite Snatch Game contestant?
Oh, that's really good. So Bendela Creme on her original season when she played Maggie Smith.
Yes, I think that's my answer, just like flat out. Oh my God, so good.
And she said, we invented the language, didn't we? And she says, oh, RuPle, is it?
Yes, I love that.
So good. That's definitely high on the list. I mean, Bob playing Carol Channing was really good too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those two are my faves.
Similarly, who did you find disappointing in the Snatch Game that you wished as a queen was going to do so well and then just ate it?
Yeah, Utica. Okay. Yeah, I feel so bad because I like her so much. And then I even looking at the outfit because she was playing Bob Ross, the painter.
Oh, she had a squirrel wig too, right?
Oh, she looked good, but then it did not go. What other bad ones?
I think Trixie's, and she said this before too, where she thinks it was a mistake, but when she played RuPaul, I was like, that's too bad. Yeah.
There were high hopes for that.
And one of my other questions is, what is your favorite season of RuPaul's Drag Race? Just overall, collectively.
I mean, 4 is what I started with, and I still have such a love for Sharon and for Latrice, and also like the drama with Fifi O'Hara, like so silly, but like also that was, you know, I still like to go back to some of those episodes. I think that's on my
4.
list for sure. 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, that was still when they were sewing a lot. And I really do like it when you see them like creating their outfits and they still look kind of crazy when they come out of the runway and it's not like done at all, because now it's very much like, oh, they had a lot of people make these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually a funny thing, because oftentimes there's a lot of queens that go on the show who don't know how to sew. And it's always kind of a side comment of how many X seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race, and there's still people that don't come on and know how to sew. It's kind of like,
right. I do think that like that part had been pushed to the side, but now they're bringing it back because some of those first couple of episodes, you see them actually trying to create something together. And did you watch this most recent season had La Ree with her bag dress and there were all these paper bags?
I must have seen it on Pit Stop though.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's also funny too, is like, do you have any memorable worst outfits that you liked or like liked guiltily?
Okay, so the worst outfits, that La Ree is like, that's
Up there.
definitely up there. There was the built Barbie doll dress that Vanjie made.
Oh my gosh, Vanjie!
Vanjie was wearing that hideous, like, it was like Hawaiian flowers and Barbie dolls. So weird. And it looked horrible.
The sponge dress always stands out to me too. I don't remember the queen though. I'll probably...
Strange. Who eventually
Was that?
won All Stars? Yes.
That was Monet Exchange? Oh my God.
Indiana University as an opera singer. You know that?
No, I didn't know that.
I'm not sure what his name is, but she was like bass baritone and like sang roles. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, story about Monet Exchange and many of these other queens. I was singing with the LA Phil. Oh, actually, it was the Los Angeles Master Chorale was doing Mozart Requiem.
Oh wow.
At Disney Hall and everything. And the usual place that they put you up across from Disney Hall was booked. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And they were like, we have you at a different hotel down the hill, whatever. So I check into the hotel immediately. I remembered this weekend is DragCon.
I was gonna say it was a DragCon. Yeah.
And they were filming the season 11 finale.
No, shut up.
And so all of the queens from the season finale were there in the hotel. So like that was when Evie Oddly won.
Uh-huh.
We saw Evie Oddly checking out of her hotel and she wanted nothing to do with us because we were standing in line together. Yeah. And I was like, can you take a picture? And she was like, no. I was like, okay, good luck. So there was Evie Oddly, but then we did see Monet Exchange come out of the elevator and yelling to Cameron Michaels. And then like, I feel like I saw all of them, but it was a weird flash of like, oh, some of these people are in drag and some aren't. Trinity Taylor was in the elevator with us. And it was basically like, hey, it was just so,
That's wild.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's like being surrounded by drag superstars like that. It's just, wow.
And the thing is, like, they're all totally people too, and they were gigging. That was their gig at that time. And I kind of forgot that I was gigging too.
Yeah, no, totally. Right?
I'm here to work.
Yeah. Wow. I'm jealous, first of all.
I had no idea that this was all going to happen that weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh, like we have to do something. And I thought like getting a ticket to DragCon, but that number is expensive.
Oh, dang. I'm sure it is.
I think you have to buy the whole weekend pass. And it was just not worth it because I only had like a couple hours I could really go. But
right. I could go on and on about RuPaul.
Well, I still have a question for you. What is your favorite season?
I would also agree with either season 4 or I think it's season 6. That's with Trixie and Katya. And that's also Bendela, right?
That's 7.
She's 7.
Right?
That was a good one too. 6, I remember when I was watching them through, like 6 and 7 or 2 in a row were just spectacular seasons.
So I also loved season 5 with Rolaska Talks.
Yes.
And the Dallas dancer queen. Oh my gosh, what's her name? She's crazy. She has big hair and she has
Alyssa Edwards.
He's on that. It's too bad I couldn't remember her name for a second. The tenor who's also in Albert Herring, his name is Joey Lepic. He has a Katya sweatshirt that he wears often.
Oh my God. I need that.
That's his favorite queen. You gotta have some Kiki with Joey Lepic.
Oh, totally. I have to answer my own question for my favorite Snatch game is definitely season 2, All Stars, where there's Katya's Bjork.
Yes. Alyssa Edwards was on season 2 of All Stars in Alaska.
Yeah.
I think she was come and see me sometime.
Right? Mae West?
It was Mae West, maybe. So
I know. See, she was so good too. Anyway, yeah, I could ramble on and on.
Here's another question.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to watch RuPaul with other people or by yourself?
I don't think it matters to me that much.
Yeah. Okay.
I've never sat in a bar and watched RuPaul though, and that's something I really want to do. But of course, pandemic is not situational for that. I'm just a super fan. I'll just watch it anytime, anywhere, especially if I am feeling less motivated or less inspired.
So the bar situation is very interesting because we watched the finale of 11, that one with Evie Oddly, at, oh my gosh, the Saloon.
Here.
Yeah, here in the.
Okay. Yeah.
It's kind of funny because there's a lot of people just standing around watching TV, which is very weird. But then I think about it, I'm like, that's what sports bars are.
I was about to say, yeah, that's exactly what happens in sports. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a little surreal. And sharing that with total strangers is like, I guess it's okay. But my husband and I like to watch it together, like I said, like when it rolls along on Saturday. But during the pandemic, or during this last season, we've been watching it with Ryan Taylor, who's the president of Minnesota Opera. Mm-hmm. He loves it also. And it's also that like, oh, we can talk about what's going on at the same time and give our own thoughts. And that really does actually affect how you watch what's happening. And then you watch things like the pit stop and you're like, oh, this isn't somebody else's opinion. And now I have a new idea of what I should have been watching. And then I want to rewatch them all the time.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, I agree with that sentiment as well, that there's new layers that you learn about backstories of queens or different perspectives of other people's opinions, and rewatching it to take note of what those things are and to see how that changes your opinion on things. Yeah.
Which is very much the same as sometimes watching music, watching concerts, watching operas, things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I loved that. That was so good. And then I'll hear something about it later and it will definitely change my mind sometimes, you know, and it's a weird thing how, you know, the experience of watching something either by yourself or what's happening in the theater can affect you a lot more than what you're watching. It's different.
Yeah, I love that comparison because as I think for some people, drag performing and just the immediate introduction to drag may be a little bit much. For some people, it may be a little bit offsetting at first, but after multiple watching, or as you say, you kind of commit to at least 3 episodes to really sink your teeth into it. It's so similar to how people perceive classical music.
100%.
Yeah, it's not to say that you must sit down and you must love both of these things because we're passionate about it. It just means that there's a lot of layers, as I was mentioning earlier, to you can really settle and stew into
with it.
The complexities of all the things that you're either seeing with a drag performance or listening to in an opera or a symphony orchestra chamber music performance.
Yeah, I have a funny story that one of my good friends from growing up had never seen an opera, and I was at Central City Opera, which is like in this tiny little town west of Denver, and he lived in Denver, and they drove from town to up to the mountain to go see this show. This little theater has these really old seats. There's kind of like nowhere to really park. It's like kind of during dinner time, and they didn't have dinner beforehand, so they were like, you know, hungry by the end of the show. And after the show, you know, I see my friend Robbie and his wife, and I was like, oh my gosh, what'd you think? And they were like, oh my gosh, well, yeah, I think we're ballet people. And I was like, okay. Like, that experience had so much less to do with whether or not the opera was good, whether or not it was a Rossini opera. It's not about Rossini. It was not about my voice. It was not about the production. It was about a million different things.
Yeah.
We think that when we experience classical music, sometimes we're so wrapped up in those millions of other things that sometimes we're not in our comfort zone about. And so we have, like you say, we have to stew. We have to settle with all these other things going on and really like learn to love some of this amazing stuff that we get to do and be able to look past some of the things that make us uncomfortable.
So well put. Sometimes so much of that inner chatter gets in the way of actually really fully experiencing something that you maybe are surprised to enjoy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there are some things about this Lord of Cries that I'm really super pumped about. And then some things I'm going to like have to jump out of my box and, you know, be nervous about. But I'm very much looking forward to those experiences and then sharing that with other people who may or may not like it because it's a risk.
Right. May I ask you 2 final questions?
Yes.
What, in your opinion, is the most common misconception of classical music and the classical music world?
I have been really encouraged recently. The resident artists at Minnesota Opera have put out their own sort of curated concerts that have been repertoire that they choose, stories that they choose, or literature or whatever it is that they have curated a program that personally describes who they are and how music affects them. I do think that so much more, especially now after COVID, that performing artists of classical music are going to have so much more of an obligation and responsibility to become authentic people and be able to show that in their performance more and more. I come from, like I said, like a very Christian Baptist even household and family that just like was so gracious about accepting music in the house, and then how music made me feel and made me accepted and made me feel like I was good at something, moved into what became my career. And wanting to be authentic also means doing things that are going to sometimes not be things that other people want. Like coming out to my family was definitely difficult, but that was something that was a risk that I had to take to be authentic and to be my own person. And I think that that's something that I am so encouraged when I watch these resident artists be just 100% themselves. And sometimes that means being really vulnerable. And sometimes that means being really open and honest. And sometimes it also means just saying like, no, I don't want to talk about this right now. And that's like all of those things you have to bring a balance to. And I think with classical music now, we're going to be really so much more open and honest with each other. And I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, you got me emotional again. Sorry, no, in a positive way. It made me connect back to our previous conversation about RuPaul, in which it was an elimination with Roxy Andrews and I think it was Alyssa Edwards, where on season 5, Roxy just broke down and said how she had these abandonment issues that she was going through with her mother and things. And Ru just broke down herself and also said, Shantae, you both stay, right? But also that she said, in drag, we get to choose our family. And I felt such a relation to that with classical music. We're looking to be more authentic to who you are in our field, just as drag is doing in their field. And we get to choose those people in our lives that support our authentic selves as much as possible.
Yeah. And I am really encouraged that I think that so many more people are so much more accepting and understanding and gracious about identity and about respect and about, making sure everybody feels safe. And it's an important part of being able to create. You can't do that unless you have all of that.
Totally. Moving on to the second question. After all the impact that COVID has done to classical music, what do you think is something positive that will enhance and carry on in our profession? I mean, maybe you already answered the question, but is there another one?
Yeah. I mean, I like I said, I think that feeling of safety, respect, and really honoring everybody's identity and our diversity and our intersectionality is so important right now. And I really hope that it gets easier and better to communicate and to be able to collaborate, because that's why we want to do it. I had to do this TV interview and I didn't realize it was going to be like all about making this opera, Albert Herring during COVID pretty much. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, what do you say? What do you say just about like, it's not about just following rules. It's about respecting the people around you, because what we have in front of us are so many unknowns about this virus that could affect each other's livelihoods. But then really we have so many unknowns in music and performing also, and we want to make sure that we're all safe and that we all feel grateful to make music and we feel really respected wherever we are. And that's what audiences are going to attach to a whole lot more after COVID. They're going to attach to that feeling of safety and of respect for what we do.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing answer. Thank you. Are there any platforms or websites for listeners to learn more about you or any upcoming projects?
Yeah. So this Lord of Cries is going to be at Santa Fe Opera. So look at Santa Fe Opera. But my Facebook is David Portillo Tenor. My website is davidportillotenor.com also, but it's very outdated. But if you want to just see me as a human being, it's Instagram is probably the best way also. And that's also David Portillo Tenor.
Great. And if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, go ahead and press that subscribe button and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. The reviews and ratings help this podcast be more visible to others, and it's a free way to support this podcast. Another free way is to tell your friends and family about it, and can always become part of the Haydn Behind the Music Stand family by donating to our Patreon page at patreon.com/Haydn Music Stand. Don't forget, there's a Spotify playlist available that contains all the pieces we've discussed on the podcast. It's all really great music, and the link is always in the description of each episode. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Haydn Music Stand for more content. David, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show and to talk about your life and RuPaul and RuPaul.
RuPaul, is it?
Thank you so much for your time. I'm so honored that you graced me with this.
I'm grateful for this time too. It's been so nice to talk shop.
Sure. And thanks for listening. Sushi, say bye.